Welcome back, guys. Episode 2 is here, and things are about to get messy. Sarah's cover is hanging by a thread. Miho might know she's a spy, and somehow, despite everything, they're falling deeper in love. If you missed episode 1, pause right now and go watch it. You'll need the full story for what's coming. For everyone who's been waiting, thank you. Hit that like button, subscribe for episode 3, and let's jump right into it. Sarah didn't sleep that night. She lay in the dark cabin, feeling the yacht rock gently on the water, and wondered if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her career, or if the biggest mistake was still to come. Because somewhere in the past 3 weeks, between the lies and the mission and the carefully constructed cover, something real had started growing. And real things in a world built on deception were the most dangerous of all. The yacht docked as the first light of dawn was breaking over Seoul, turning the sky soft shades of pink and gold. Sarah hadn't slept more than a few minutes, her mind replaying the salon scene over and over. By all logic, she should have been caught. But Miho had covered for her. The question that haunted her through the night was simple. Why? She gathered her things and prepared to disembark with the other guests. When she emerged onto the deck, Miho was there, leaning against the railing with a cup of coffee, looking like he'd slept perfectly. His eyes found hers immediately.
"Sarah," he called.
A moment, her stomach dropped, but she kept her expression neutral as she approached. The other guests were already heading down the gangway, leaving them essentially alone except for distant security. Miho handed her a second cup of coffee that had been sitting beside him. "You look like you didn't sleep well." The cabin was comfortable. "I'm just not used to being on the water." He studied her face, and she felt like he could see straight through her. "Sarah, I need to be honest with you about something." Her heart hammered.
Here it was.
The confrontation.
The end.
"I'm promoting you," he said. She blinked, certain she'd misheard.
What?
"I need a personal advisor. Someone I can trust to handle sensitive negotiations and communications. Someone who understands both the business side and the cultural complexities." He set his coffee down. "You've proven yourself invaluable these past few weeks. I want you closer to my operations." Sarah's mind raced. This was exactly what the NIS wanted: deeper access, more trust, proximity to his inner circle. But it was also more dangerous, more exposure, more chances for her cover to crack, and more time in his presence, which was becoming its own kind of danger. "That's very generous," she managed. "It's strategic," he corrected with a slight smile. "I don't do things out of generosity. I do them because they make sense." He stepped closer, and she could smell his cologne mixing with the salt air. "But I'll be honest. There's a selfish reason, too."
"What's that?"
"I like having you around." The admission hung between them like a confession. Sarah's breath caught, and for a moment, the spy in her went completely silent. All that remained was the woman standing on a yacht at dawn, looking into the eyes of a man who was supposed to be her enemy. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Say yes," he replied simply. "Take the position. Let me show you what I'm really building here." She should have said no. Should have reported this development to Director Kong and asked for extraction. The mission was getting too complicated, too personal. But instead, she heard herself say yes. "I'll do it." The smile that crossed Miho's face was genuine, unguarded in a way she'd never seen before. It transformed him, made him look younger, less burdened.
"Good," he said.
"Then let's start today. I want you to move into the executive floor at Tiger Enterprises. You'll have your own office next to mine." "That's very fast." "I told you," he said with a slight smirk. "When I know what I want, I don't waste time." The days that followed blurred together in a whirlwind of meetings, documents, and secrets. Sarah's new office was sleek and modern, separated from Miho's by only a glass wall that could be frosted for privacy. She had access to files she'd never dreamed of seeing, communications that would be invaluable to the NIS, evidence that could dismantle his entire organization. Every night, she copied files to encrypted drives. Every morning, she looked Miho in the eye and pretended nothing was wrong. The cognitive dissonance was becoming unbearable. But worse than the guilt was the growing realization that she was enjoying this life. The intellectual challenge, the high-stakes negotiations, the feeling of being essential to something larger than herself. And most dangerous of all, she was enjoying being near him. Miho was different when they worked together. He listened to her opinions, challenged her ideas, trusted her judgment. He made her laugh with dry observations about their business partners. He asked about her childhood, her dreams, the things that made her who she was. And slowly, carefully, he began to reveal himself too. Late one evening, they were alone in his office, reviewing contracts for a shipping deal. The city glowed beyond the windows, and Sarah had long since kicked off her heels, her feet tucked under her as she sat on the leather couch with papers spread around her. Miho looked up from his desk and smiled. "You look like a college student cramming for exams." "I feel like one," she admitted. "This clause about liability doesn't make sense in 3 different languages." He got up and came to sit beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "Let me see." As he leaned over to look at the document, Sarah was acutely aware of his proximity, the warmth of his body, the subtle scent of his cologne, the way his rolled-up sleeves revealed those tattoos that told stories she was slowly learning to read. The tiger represented his father. The lotus flowers represented rebirth. Each line was a scar turned into art. "You're right," he said after a moment. "This clause would leave us completely exposed if anything went wrong." He glanced at her. "You just saved us from a very expensive mistake."
Just doing my job.
"No," he said quietly. "You're doing much more than that." He held her gaze. "Sarah, I need you to understand something. The people in my world, they're loyal because of fear or greed. But you're different. You're here because you choose to be." The words pierced her like a blade. If only he knew the truth. "Miho," she started, but he raised a hand. "Let me finish. I know my life isn't normal. I know what I do exists in shadows. But when you're here, it feels less dark. Like maybe there's a version of this life that isn't just about survival." Her chest tightened painfully. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because," he said, his voice dropping lower, "I think you feel it too. This thing between us." The air seemed to have left the room entirely. Sarah knew she should deny it, should maintain her cover, should do anything except tell the truth. But looking into his eyes, she couldn't summon the lie. "I do," she whispered. "And it terrifies me." "Good," he said with the ghost of a smile. "Fear means it's real." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her face gently. His thumb traced her cheekbone, and Sarah's eyes fluttered closed. Every instinct, every moment of training, screamed at her to stop this. But she couldn't move.
Couldn't think.
Couldn't do anything except feel. "Sarah," he murmured, and the way he said her name, soft, almost reverent, broke something inside her. Then his phone buzzed, shattering the moment. He pulled back with a frustrated exhale and checked the screen. His expression darkened immediately. "What is it?" Sarah asked, her voice unsteady. "A problem at one of our locations." He stood, already shifting back into business mode. "I need to handle this personally." He looked at her, regret clear in his eyes. "I'm sorry. Terrible timing." "It's fine," she said, trying to sound normal.
Go.
"Do what you need to do." After he left, Sarah sat in the empty office, her heart racing and her mind in chaos. She'd been seconds away from kissing him, seconds away from crossing a line that could never be uncrossed. Her phone buzzed. A message from Director Kong. "We need to meet. Tomorrow, 6 a.m. The usual place." Sarah closed her eyes. She knew what was coming. The NIS was going to ask for results, for concrete evidence, for the information that would bring Miho down. And she had it: encrypted files, communications, financial records. Everything they needed. She just wasn't sure she could deliver it anymore. The next morning, Sarah met Director Kong at a small cafe in Hongdae, far from Tiger Enterprises and the world she'd been living in. Kong was already there, sitting in the back corner with his coffee and his sharp, assessing eyes. "You look tired, Agent Sarah," he said as she sat down. "I've been working hard. That's what we need to talk about." He slid a tablet across the table. "These are the files you've been sending us. They're good, very good. But we need more." "More what?" "We need his personal communications. We need to know about his connections in the government, the officials he's bribing, the politicians who protect him. He leaned forward. You're in the perfect position now. Closer than any agent has ever been. Sarah's coffee tasted bitter. I'm working on it. Work faster, Kong said flatly. We have intelligence that suggests Miho is planning something big in the next few weeks. A major deal that could expand his network significantly. If we can intercept it, we can take down his entire operation. What kind of deal? We don't know. That's why we need you. He held her gaze. Sarah, I know this isn't easy. Getting close to targets, building relationships, it can be complicated. But you have to remember what this is. He's a criminal. He's dangerous. And he would kill you without hesitation if he knew who you really were. The words should have strengthened her resolve. Instead, they just made her feel hollow. I understand, she said quietly. Good. Because we're running out of time. Kong stood, preparing to leave. The endgame is approaching, Agent Sarah. Make sure you're ready. After he left, Sarah sat alone in the cafe, staring at her reflection in the dark coffee. The woman looking back at her seemed like a stranger, hollow-eyed, uncertain, caught between two worlds with no idea which one was real anymore. Her phone buzzed. A message from Miho. Where are you? I have something to show you. She should have ignored it. Should have taken the day to clear her head, to remember who she was and why she was doing this. But instead, she texted back, on my way. Because despite everything, the lies, the mission, the danger, the only place that felt real anymore was wherever he was. And that, she knew, was the most dangerous truth of all. Miho was waiting for her in his office, and when she entered, she found him standing by the window with an expression she couldn't quite read, anticipation mixed with something that looked almost like nervousness.
Close the door, he said softly.
Sarah did, her heart picking up speed. The glass walls were already frosted, giving them complete privacy. Miho, what's going on? He turned to face her fully. I've been thinking about what almost happened last night. Her breath caught. Me too. And I realized something. He stepped closer. I've spent my entire adult life being careful, trusting no one, keeping everyone at a distance. But with you, I don't want to be careful anymore. Miho, let me finish, he said gently. I know this is complicated. I know I'm not the kind of man you probably imagine being with. But I also know that what I feel when I'm around you is the most real thing I've experienced in years. Sarah's eyes stung with tears she couldn't shed.
You don't really know me, she whispered.
Yes, I do, he replied with absolute certainty. I see the way you care about getting things right. The way you fight for fairness even in small things. The way you look at the world like you're trying to protect something beautiful in it. His voice dropped lower. I see you, Sarah. The real you. The irony was crushing. He thought he saw her, but he was looking at a carefully constructed lie. And yet, somehow, he'd still managed to see something true. The part of her that existed beneath the spy, the part she'd almost forgotten was there. What do you want from me? She asked, her voice barely audible. He closed the distance between them, standing so close she could feel the heat of him. I want you to trust me, he said. I want you to let me in. He paused, vulnerability flashing across his features. I want to know if this thing between us has a chance at being real. It's real, she said, and it was the most honest thing she'd ever told him. Whatever else is complicated, that part is real. Then let it be real, he murmured. Just for a moment. Let's not think about anything else. And then he kissed her. It was gentle at first, tentative, as if he was giving her every opportunity to pull away. But Sarah didn't pull away. She leaned into him, her hands coming up to grip his shirt, and the kiss deepened. It was like falling and flying at the same time, terrifying and exhilarating and completely inevitable. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Miho rested his forehead against hers. I've wanted to do that since the moment I saw you at that gala, he whispered. Sarah's heart was breaking even as it soared, because she knew, with absolute, crushing certainty, that this couldn't last. That eventually the truth would come out. And when it did, this beautiful, impossible thing between them would shatter. But for now, in this moment, She let herself have it. Let herself be just Sarah, not Agent Sarah. Just a woman in love with a man who was supposed to be her enemy, even if it destroyed them both. The next 2 weeks were the best and worst of Sarah's life. Best because being with Miho felt like breathing after years of holding her breath. He was attentive without being possessive, passionate without being reckless. He took her to quiet restaurants where they could talk for hours. He showed her parts of Seoul she'd never seen, hidden gardens and midnight markets that felt like secrets shared only between them. And worst, because every moment of happiness was poisoned by the knowledge of what was coming. The NIS was growing impatient. Director Kang's messages became more frequent, more urgent. They knew something big was happening, could see the pieces moving on the board, but couldn't figure out what Miho was planning. And they were counting on Sarah to find out. She tried. She really did. She accessed his files, copied his communications, sent encrypted reports every night after he fell asleep beside her. But there was a part of her that held back, that didn't dig quite as deep as she could have, that hesitated before sending the most damaging information. She was compromised. She knew it, and she didn't know how to stop it. Then came the night that changed everything. Miho had invited her to see something special, he said. They drove out of Seoul just as the sun was setting, heading into the mountains where the autumn leaves glowed gold and crimson. Sarah was curious but not worried, until they pulled up to a familiar building, the abandoned hotel penthouse. Her blood went cold. This is where they used to launder money, Miho said casually as they walked through the empty lobby. Before everything fell apart. Why are we here? Sarah asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Because it's the only place I know isn't bugged, he replied. And we need to talk. They took the elevator to the penthouse floor. The space was vast and empty, floor-to-ceiling windows showing the forest below and the mountains beyond. The last sunlight painted everything in shades of amber and shadow. Miho stood by the window, his back to her. Sarah, he said quietly, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Her heart was hammering so hard, she thought it might break through her ribs. Okay. He turned to face her, and his expression was unlike anything she'd seen before. Not angry, not cold, just infinitely sad.
Who are you really?
The question hung in the air like a death sentence. Sarah's mind raced through possible responses, possible covers, possible escapes. But looking into his eyes, she found she couldn't lie anymore. Couldn't maintain the performance. Couldn't be anyone except exactly who she was. How long have you known? She whispered. About a week, he said. Maybe longer. I kept hoping I was wrong. He pulled something from his pocket, her gold brooch, the one she'd been wearing on the yacht. He'd taken it apart, revealing the tiny camera lens inside. You're very good, Sarah. Or whatever your real name is. You almost had me convinced. Sarah is my real name, she said, tears blurring her vision. That part was always true. And the rest? He stepped closer. The consulting job? The connection we have? Was any of it real? Yes, she said desperately. Miho, I know you don't believe me, but everything I felt, everything between us, that was real. You're a spy, he said flatly. You were sent to infiltrate my organization. To destroy me. I was, she admitted, the words tasting like ash. But I didn't expect, I never thought I would. Would what? Fall in love with your target? His laugh was bitter. Is that what you're going to tell me? That you fell in love while you were betraying me every single day? I did fall in love with you. The words burst out of her, raw and honest and desperate. I know you have no reason to believe me. I know I've lied about everything else. But it was never part of the plan. It just happened. Miho stared at her for a long moment, and Sarah watched emotions war across his face. Anger, hurt, betrayal, and underneath it all, love that refused to die even now. Do you have any idea what you've done? He asked quietly. The information you've gathered, the communications you've copied. Do you know what will happen if that gets out? I haven't sent everything, Sarah said quickly. I've been holding back. I couldn't. You couldn't what? Finish the job? He ran a hand through his hair, frustration and pain radiating from him. Sarah, they're going to come for me. Your agency. And when they do, People will die.
Not just me.
Everyone in my organization.
Some of them are criminals, yes.
But some of them are just trying to survive, just trying to feed their families. I know, she whispered. Miho, I know. That's why I've been trying to find another way. There is no other way, he said tiredly. This is how these things end. You do your job. I pay the price. And everything we had or thought we had disappears like it never existed. Then run, Sarah said desperately. Run now, tonight. I'll tell them I lost you. I'll say you figured it out and disappeared. You have resources, connections, you could vanish and start over somewhere else. And leave you to face your agency's wrath. Leave you to explain why you let me go? He shook his head.
No, Sarah.
I won't do that to you. Why not? She demanded, tears streaming down her face now. You should hate me. You should want revenge. Why would you protect me? He crossed to her in 2 strides and cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs wiping away her tears. Because, he said, his voice breaking, even knowing everything you've done, I still love you. And that's the cruelest part of all. Then he kissed her, and it was nothing like their first kiss. This one tasted of salt and sorrow, of endings and impossible choices. When they broke apart, Sarah was sobbing. I'm so sorry, she whispered against his chest.
I'm so sorry.
I know, he murmured into her hair. I know you are. They stood like that as darkness fell outside, holding each other in an abandoned penthouse, 2 people who loved each other but existed on opposite sides of an unbridgeable divide. Finally, Miho pulled away. You need to go, he said gently. Before I change my mind about letting you. What are you going to do? He smiled, sad and resigned. What I've always done.
Survive.
Miho.
Go, Sarah. Please.
While I can still let you. She wanted to argue, to fight, to find some impossible solution that would save them both. But looking into his eyes, she knew there wasn't one. So she turned and walked toward the elevator, each step feeling like tearing herself in half. At the elevator doors, she looked back one last time. Miho was standing by the window, silhouetted against the night sky, looking every inch the dangerous man he was supposed to be. But all she could see was the man who had shown her his scars, who had trusted her with his secrets, who had loved her even when he knew she was his enemy. I love you, she said, her voice barely carrying across the space. I know, he replied. That's why this hurts so much. The elevator doors closed, and Sarah collapsed against the wall, her entire body shaking with sobs. She'd been trained for mission failure, for physical danger, for interrogation and escape. But no one had trained her for this, for the agony of loving someone you destroyed. She made it to her car and sat in the darkness, trying to figure out what to do next. Her phone buzzed. A message from Director Kong. Major movement detected. Miho's organization is mobilizing. Something big is happening tonight. Be ready. Sarah's blood ran cold. They were moving now. They were going to raid Tiger Enterprises, arrest everyone, dismantle everything Miho had built. And she'd given them the information to do it. She should have felt victorious. The mission was succeeding. But all she felt was horror. Without thinking, she started the car and drove. Not back to her apartment, not to NIS headquarters, but toward the underground nightclub in Itaewon where she knew Miho conducted his most sensitive business. If the NIS was raiding tonight, that's where they'd hit. And despite everything, despite the betrayal and the lies and the impossible situation, she had to warn him, had to give him one last chance to escape. Because love, she'd learned, didn't die just because it should. It lived on, stubborn and painful, and refusing to listen to reason. The streets of Seoul blurred past as she drove through the night, racing toward a confrontation that could only end one way, in ruins. But at least, she thought, she would face those ruins standing beside the man she loved, even if it cost her everything. The underground nightclub was called Eclipse, and it lived up to its name. Dark, pulsing with bass-heavy music, illuminated only by strobing lights that turned faces into flickering masks. Sarah pushed through the crowd, her heart hammering, scanning for any sign of Miho or his people. Then she saw them. In the VIP section elevated above the dance floor, separated by velvet ropes and security, Miho sat at the center of a curved booth, surrounded by men in expensive suits. Even from a distance, even in the chaos of the club, his presence was magnetic. He was mid-conversation, gesturing with one hand while the other held a glass of whiskey. Sarah started toward the VIP area, but security blocked her path. "I need to see Miho," she said urgently. "It's an emergency." The security guard looked skeptical. "You're not on the list." "Tell him Sarah is here," she interrupted. "Tell him now." The guard spoke into his radio, listened to the response, then stepped aside with obvious surprise. "Go ahead." Sarah climbed the stairs to the VIP section, acutely aware of the eyes following her. When Miho saw her, his expression shifted, surprise, confusion, and something that might have been hope, quickly suppressed. "Sarah," he said, standing. "What are you doing here?"
"We need to talk. Now."
"Alone?" He must have heard the urgency in her voice because he didn't argue. He led her to a private back room, soundproofed and quiet after the chaos of the club. The moment the door closed, Sarah grabbed his arms. "You need to leave.
Right now."
"The NIS is coming. They're raiding tonight." "I know," he said calmly. She blinked. "You know? Jae-sung got a tip from one of our contacts in the police department about an hour ago." His expression was unreadable. "I assume you're the source of their intelligence?" Sarah's throat tightened.
"Yes."
"But Miho, I swear I didn't know they were moving tonight. I would have warned you sooner." "Would you?" he asked quietly. "Or would you have let them come?" The question hit like a physical blow. "I don't know," she admitted. "I don't know what I would have done. But I'm here now. I came to warn you. That has to count for something." Before Miho could respond, the door burst open. Jae-sung stood there, his face tight with urgency. "Boss, they're here. Multiple units, front and back. We need to move now." The sound of sirens was suddenly audible even through the soundproofing. Then came a voice over a loudspeaker, amplified and authoritative. "This is the National Intelligence Service. The building is surrounded. Everyone inside, remain calm and cooperate with authorities." Miho's jaw tightened, but his voice remained steady. "Get everyone to the emergency exits. Make sure no one does anything stupid. No weapons unless absolutely necessary." "What about you?" Jae-sung asked. "I'll be right behind you."
"Go."
After Jae-sung left, Miho turned back to Sarah. His expression was complex: anger, resignation, and underneath it all, that stubborn affection that refused to die.
"You should go with them," he said.
"Your people. Tell them you were deep undercover, that you couldn't break cover without compromising the mission. They'll believe you." "And what about you?" "I told you before. I survive." He touched her face gently.
"But you need to go now, Sarah."
"Before this gets worse." Outside, the sound of boots on stairs, of orders being shouted, of the careful, organized chaos of a raid in progress. Sarah knew she had seconds to make a choice. Go with the NIS agents, maintain her cover, complete her mission, or stay with Miho and risk everything. The choice should have been obvious. But nothing about this had been obvious since the moment she met him. "I'm not leaving you," she said firmly. "Sarah, I've already lost my career. I've already betrayed everything I was supposed to stand for. The least I can do is stand beside you now." His eyes softened. "You're incredibly stubborn, you know that?" "I learned from the best," she replied with a watery smile. Then the door exploded inward. NIS agents poured into the room, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Sarah instinctively moved in front of Miho, her hands raised. "Don't shoot," she shouted. "We'll cooperate." "Agent Sarah?" One of the agents lowered his weapon slightly, confused. "What are you?" "I'm bringing him in," Sarah said, forcing her voice into the authoritative tone she'd been trained to use. "Target is non-hostile.
Stand down."
But before anyone could respond, Miho stepped around her, his hands raised in surrender. "It's all right," he said quietly to Sarah. "This is how it has to be." The agents moved in, roughly pulling Miho's arms behind his back, securing handcuffs around his wrists. He didn't resist, didn't fight. He just looked at Sarah with an expression that broke her heart all over again. "Miho," she started, but he shook his head slightly. "Don't," he murmured. "You did your job. That's what matters." They started to lead him away, and Sarah felt something inside her crack wide open. "No," she said, her voice rising.
Wait.
But they weren't listening. More agents were flooding the club, securing everyone, processing the scene. In the chaos, Sarah watched helplessly as Miho was taken down the stairs, disappearing into a sea of flashing lights and uniforms. Director Kong appeared at her elbow. "Excellent work, Agent Sarah," he said with satisfaction. "We've been trying to catch him in the act for years. This is a major victory." Sarah turned to him, and whatever he saw on her face made him step back slightly. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice hollow. "About this mission. About everything." "Later," Kong said dismissively. "Right now, we need you to provide a full debriefing." "No," Sarah interrupted. "Not later.
Now."
She took a breath. "I'm compromised. I've been compromised for weeks. And you need to know everything before this goes any further." Kang's expression hardened. "What are you talking about?" "I mean, I fell in love with him," Sarah said flatly. "I mean, I've been holding back information. I mean that every report I sent you was edited to protect him as much as I could. I mean that I'm not the agent you think I am anymore." The silence that followed was deafening. Then Kong said, very quietly, "You're suspended, effective immediately. Surrender your weapon and your credentials." Sarah did so without argument. She felt numb, hollowed out, like a shell of the person she'd been when this mission started. Their love story isn't over. It's just beginning. Episode 3 will show you what happens when a woman with nothing to lose decides to fight for the impossible. Will she find a way to reach Miho? Can love survive prison walls and broken trust? There's only one way to find out. Subscribe now, drop a like if this story is touching your heart, and comment. Do you believe in love that conquers all? Because Sarah does. And she's about to prove it. See you in episode 3.